Hi, folks. This is Harold Rhee from the Pawprint Animal Rescue Podcast. We're excited to bring you our full interview this Thursday with Bronwen Dickey, author of Pitbull, The Battle Over an American Icon. For now, Bronwen's going to read us some passages from Pitbull. Don't forget, we're going to be giving away a 5-pack of books, all with an animal theme, including Bronwen's book. Go to thisispawprint.com/giveaway for more details. Now, here's Bronwen.
I'll start from the first chapter so people kind of get a sense of where this all began. On a hot summer day a few years ago, my husband Sean brought home Nola, a slightly underweight 38-pound pit bull with a caramel and white coat, a pink nose, and eyes the color of honey. Pronounced cheek muscles and a cleft in the top of her head gave her face the shape of a small but eager heart. When Sean and I visited our city's animal shelter earlier that month, I had barely noticed her. "Wait a minute," he said, as I cooed over a flashier and more extroverted candidate. "What about this one?" When she glued herself to Sean's legs in the shelter's play yard, we agreed to give her a home. We did not need another dog. We had been married less than a year, and we still did not know how best to shape our independent selves to the contours of a shared life. Sean worked long hours at a local hospital, and I spent weeks away from home on reporting assignment. Oscar, our imperious black pug, had finally gotten to the age where we no longer worried about leaving him alone in the house, and not worrying was an activity I had come to enjoy. Any new addition would put a large speed bump in our otherwise smooth routine. I'm still not quite sure why we did it, but I do remember an unnerving sense of recognition when she looked at me through her chain-link kennel. It was a feeling I had never experienced before and haven't since. I can't say that she stared at me exactly, but she never looked away either. Somewhere underneath that look was a spark of intense curiosity. It was a look with layers. In his classic essay, Why Look at Animals?, the critic John Berger writes that the look between man and animal is one of enormous weight. It is a bridge between our species and theirs, one of the few that can be built between creatures that do not share a common language. The animal scrutinizes man across a narrow abyss of non-comprehension, Berger says. When man looks back, however, he is always looking across ignorance and fear. I did not feel fear in the presence of this particular dog, but hundreds of news reports about dog attacks told me that I had good reason to fear her kind. For almost 40 years, the media have recycled a seductively simple narrative about dangerous breeds that relies on terrifying anecdotes and a vocal minority of people who have declared themselves experts. Those closest to me were quick to express their reservations about adopting a pit bull. "I wouldn't do it," one woman told me solemnly. "Those dogs will turn on you, and once the aggression switch is turned on, there's no turning it off." Another lowered her voice and said she assumed certain things about people who own pit bulls. She did not need to elaborate. I understood that she assumed pit bull owners were either criminally inclined or otherwise morally suspect. But my friends who wrung their hands had never physically encountered these dogs. They were not even sure how to identify them. Even so, they believed they knew the pit bull's story, into which was written a long legacy of human bloodlust and betrayal, hardline genetic determinism, and unprovoked animal rage. For the better part of 200 years, the history of bull and terrier dogs was illustrious rather than infamous. Advertisers across the United States clamored to use pit bulls in their campaigns during the 1920s, not because the dogs were believed to be menacing, but because they were thought to be so friendly and appealing to the average Joe. They are the only dogs to have appeared on the cover of Life magazine 3 times, for example. The animal's widespread popularity among people of all ages, races, and classes owed much to their reputations as plucky, unfussy sidekicks and hardy, all-purpose workers. More than that, however, the dog with the patch over his eye was seen as quintessentially American, good-natured, brave, resilient, and dependable. By World War I, pit bulls were so beloved as national symbols that we literally and figuratively wrapped them in the flag. We even called them Yankee Terriers. Haphazardly classified under almost 20 other names over the years, bull and terrier dogs marched onto the field at the Battle of Gettysburg and sniffed out snipers at Normandy. They peeked out of covered wagons bound for California and stumped for women's suffrage. One greeted visitors at New York City's first pizzeria in 1907, while another lived in Teddy Roosevelt's White House. They also accompanied us into the brave new world of modern technology, listening to his master's voice on the recently invented gramophone and riding shotgun in the first cross-country road trip by automobile. Cultural icons as diverse as Sir Walter Scott, William Buffalo Bill Cody, Anna Pavlova, Helen Keller, Jack Dempsey, Jack Johnson, Andy Devine, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, Gary Cooper, Douglas Fairbanks, James Thurber, Theodore Dr. Seuss Geisel, and Jimmy Carter proudly kept bull and terrier dogs as pets. And years before anyone heard of a German shepherd named Rin Tin Tin, pit bull actors ruled the silver screen. In fact, Rinty only appeared in 27 motion pictures, while a pit bull named Pal the Wonder Dog appeared in 224. Then, in the 1970s, like a bright light snapping off, everything went terribly wrong. The crime of dogfighting exploded in the headlines, and the well-intentioned, well-publicized crusade to stamp out a barbaric but moribund form of animal torture unwittingly made it more popular. Once reporters and misinformed activists cast the dogs as willing participants in their own abuse, pit bulls were exiled to the most turbulent margins of society, where a cycle of poverty, violence, fear, and desperation had already created a booming market for aggressive dogs. Headlines about pit bull attacks on humans multiplied. Within a few short years, America's century-old love for its former mascot gave way to the presumption that pit bulls were biologically hardwired to kill. Perhaps this tempest should not surprise us. There may be no creature on earth that lends itself to as much love, hate, and myth-making as the domestic dog. There is no animal that our culture is more invested in, no animal with whom we spend more of our lives, no animal that we see as a truer extension of ourselves. In the 35,000 years since we entered the interspecies partnership that made civilization possible, the literature of dogs has become mostly a literature of longing. For home, for safety, for acceptance, and probably for some flicker of the wildness we ourselves have lost. The magic that gleams an instant between Argos and Odysseus is both the recognition of diversity and the need for affection across the illusions of form, noted the anthropologist and science writer Lauren Isley, alluding to the final books of Homer's epic, the Odyssey. After 20 years apart, the eponymous warrior's dog recognizes him when his human family cannot. That look of recognition, Isley says, is nature's cry to homeless, far-wandering, insatiable man. Do not forget your brethren, nor the green wood from which you sprang. To do so is to invite disaster. Yet our ambivalence toward the dog runs as deeply as our love for it, in both our minds and our myths. One has only to look at the sheer number of canine monsters that romp through our nightmares. For every faithful Argos, there is a knife-toothed Kerberos guarding the gates of Hades. For every Toto, there is a Baskerville hound charging across the moors, its eyes glowing with phosphorus. For every lassie, there's a Cujo. The chaos of wildness is unnerving on its own, but more so when a creature that manifests it sleeps in our beds. In order to make sense of a confusing, chaotic world, Claude Lévi-Strauss believed that we divide the landscape into strict binaries and opposing forces: good, evil, black, white, hero, monster, us, and them. Knowing how to categorize things puts ground under our feet when we are frightened by uncertainty. Dogs fit perfectly into this divided portrait. We are always looking at two dogs, in a sense. The physical dog in front of us, the one with the particular brain and heart who likes to eat popcorn or likes to play frisbee, and the character in a much larger story we have been telling ourselves about dogs for thousands of years. We embroider this narrative with personal anecdotes, hopes, fears, rumors, gossip, received wisdom, and the constant drone of modern media, but the story is an ever-evolving fiction. Often it has little, if anything, to do with the flesh and blood animal looking back. One of the most famous relics from the doomed city of Pompeii is a mosaic from the house of the tragic poet. It depicts a ferocious guard dog gnashing its teeth. Cave canem, it warns, beware of the dog. Just across the way, at the house of a local official named Visonius Primus, the preserved remains of an actual guard dog that perished in the destruction were also found. Chained to its post by a bronze-studded collar, the animal was unable to escape the volcano's wrath. As the dog writhed in agony, the lava and ash that overwhelmed it froze the creature in time as a symbol of pathos, not violence. Yet it is almost always the first dog, the one with teeth bared, that we remember.
We want to say thank you to Bronwen Dickey for her reading. We also want to say thank you to Bronwen for the hard work and dedication she put into this book, which expands our knowledge of pit bulls, the rest of the dog world, and ourselves. We also want to say thank you to Peter Zeutlin, author of Rescue Road and a previous guest, for connecting us with Bronwen. This Thursday, our full interview with Bronwen Dickey will be on the Pawprint Animal Rescue podcast. You can find us on your favorite podcast app like iTunes, SoundCloud, or Google Play Music. You can also check us out at thisispawprint.com. Have a great day, everyone, and see you next time on Pawprint.